Welcome to the Artful Exchange, the podcast where we dive into the fascinating world of design, creativity, and innovation. I'm your host, the poetic designer from Winter Design, and it is a pleasure to present our guest joining us here today. In 2022, Andreas Fensby opened a gallery in a ski resort area of VIllard de Lans in France, Southeastern France. So I believe it's quite close to Grenoble. The gallery stands as a dynamic contemporary art space committed to promoting the excellence of Scandinavian art. And the gallery serves as a platform for both established and emerging artists from the Nordic region, with a curatorial focus mainly on nature. Opening an art gallery, that can go both ways. But with hard work, passion and dedication, Andreas has managed to double the size of the gallery, tripled the amount of artists, and received numerous amounts of support from locals wishing the gallery to succeed. Andreas is French-Swedish, having grown up in both countries, and has lost the interest for making a pathway and a gallery focusing on Scandinavian artists in France. Hello, Andreas, and welcome so much to the Artful Exchange. It's such a pleasure to have you to join us here today, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about what drove you to starting a gallery in France, as many of us can relate to how difficult this journey can be. So please tell us more about you and where your story begins.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It really is a pleasure to share my experience, which is quite a story if you think about it, because a Scandinavian art gallery, there isn't any other. This one is the first of its kind in Europe, so outside of the Scandinavian region. And there's been a lot of pleasant surprises, a lot of ups and downs. But as you said, with hard work and passion, anything is possible. And I'm lucky to say that today the gallery is still evolving and there are many projects going on. So it's only pleasure. It's not even work. It's just passion.
I presume that you're quite tired now since you just literally closed down the gallery for today, didn't you?
I mean, it's all right. I'm more of a night person, so I'm still awake during the evening.
Okay.
And I usually work in the evening. So tired or not, I mean, I really enjoy doing this podcast. So it's just pleasure, really.
Do you do any other jobs beside the gallery or?
Yes, there is a small one that I do. And that it goes together with my studies because I don't think I told you, but I didn't do any art studies and I studied languages originally to become a translator and interpreter. And so from time to time, I do have a small interpreting job, which is art related because I travel with artists on, and that's the crazy part, on cruises. And on these cruises, they have auctions going on. And it's an American art gallery that is organizing these auctions. So I travel with these French artists. They don't speak a word of English. And I'm here to do the translating for a couple of days. So it's a quick trip around Europe and then back home. Yeah.
That sounds super exciting and
Yeah,
so much fun.
it is crazy. It is crazy when you find out what is going on these cruises. The Americans really have the sense for business. They know what works, and they found the thread to sell art on international waters, and it is absolutely mind-blowing.
I would actually love to come see how that works. It sounds quite quite
Yeah,
exciting.
it's an enterprise. It's really an enterprise.
Yeah,
It's
I can
much bigger
imagine
than
it's
you
a
imagine.
big enterprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the only little side job that I have from time to time. But otherwise, it's the gallery 200% because I'm still at the early stage of developing it. So you got to go all in.
Exactly. You really do, actually. But that being said, translation is a work of art itself.
It is, yeah,
It
creating
is.
understanding
Yeah,
between two people who don't speak the same language. Yeah.
exactly. The
And
word
art
of
does the
art.
same thing.
Sorry?
And
That,
art does the same thing. It unites
yes.
people without speaking the same language because it goes beyond words. It's another way of exchanging and agreeing on something in a
I'm
certain
so
way.
happy to hear that. Opening an art gallery is challenging, though, and especially in a country with such a rich art history like France. So, what are some of the biggest obstacles you faced? It doesn't sound like you have faced any, but I'm still asking.
Um, I would say there are two main obstacles. The first one is you have to follow all the unwritten rules of the French art market. Um, you don't see them, you don't hear them, they aren't written anywhere, but they do exist. And a lot of collectors follow these rules as well. So, to establish a certain authority, you need to follow the trend, follow the system, and so you can't make any mistakes on that specific part. And the other challenge is being a young gallerist in a field with a lot of older art gallery directors. Well, the challenge is you have to be convincing enough. You People need to take you seriously despite your young age and your short experience, you could say. And so, what you have to do in that case is bring quality. If you are going to represent Scandinavian art in France, you need to bring the best of Scandinavia. Because if you start on a bad note with artists that may send a negative image, well, your entire reputation is on the line and you lose all credibility. So I had to start with the best I could find, the most original, the ones with technique, a certain style, and at the same time, people needed to identify Scandinavia in their paintings, and that's why I focused mainly on figurative art as well. So focusing on landscapes and the Nordic light, which is something that a lot of people hear about, but they can't see it, and that's where you have to teach them to show them what Scandinavian art is.
True. It could still be scary, though, because um, an emerging or established Scandinavian artist in the Nordic region still doesn't necessarily need to be accepted in France by collectors in France.
Yes, and as you said, France has a really rich art history. The competition is serious. There are a lot of artists in France. You can imagine with a country of 70 million inhabitants, the market is totally different. There are a lot of galleries. All of them are doing the same work, and all the artists are aspiring for the same thing. And so you need to you need to present something that is at the same time original but new and that looks Scandinavian. And I've had this question asked a lot: what is Scandinavian art? Theoretically, it could be anything. I mean, people in Scandinavia paint everything you want. So I had to do a selection of paintings and sculptures that would reflect the image that people have of Scandinavia. And that is where I consider myself lucky because I grew up in France. So I saw my homeland, Sweden, from a outsider perspective. I saw Sweden as a foreigner. Um, the image I have of Sweden isn't the same as what Swedes have of their own country because I grew up overseas. And so the French people have a specific image in mind. Scandinavia is the great north. It's the breathtaking nature, the silent winter, and so much more. The lifestyle, the food, the design as well. Design is really important in France when it comes to Scandinavian identity. And so I had to find a combination of all of this, but in painting.
Well, you obviously did thorough research on this and know the art scene well at such a young age.
Well,
How
I
did,
won't, sorry,
yeah.
I
No,
won't,
continue, please.
I won't lie. When I started the gallery, I started with absolutely nothing. So it was just basic internet researches. And before opening the gallery, I believe I went through about 1,600 artist profiles to
Wow.
get a better understanding and finding what was really original and what really came out as typically Scandinavian, but also where technique was unquestionable.
Right, but still, you must, I mean, to start a gallery, even though the research you've been doing looking for artists, you have to have a genuine, core within you, um, liking art. I mean, the art scene. You must have followed the art scene before you decided to commit to this
That
line
is
of business.
that is correct. I worked in art galleries in Paris before that, and that is where I started my career, you would say. So I finished my master's degree and then did a few internships, worked in museums as well. And afterwards, when COVID came, well, it was time for a break for obvious reasons. But then it was also time for something new to happen. And I had this idea of creating my own project. And it started as a simple, well, gallery with international artists, finding what I liked and then presenting them. But then I asked myself, what is the missing piece of the puzzle when it comes to Scandinavia? And then I realized that people know a lot about Scandinavian design, furniture, architecture, lifestyle, food, and music. But when it comes to contemporary art on the European market, you rarely hear about Scandinavian artists, especially in France. And the few people who actually know about Scandinavian art, well, they will mention the painters from the 19th and 20th century, and they are great painters. But we are not in the same time period anymore. And I believe there are so many talents that need to be discovered. And what's particular about all the artists in my gallery is that they rarely left their home country. So this is their debut on the international scene, and I wish for them to be well known all over the place.
I'm so glad you mentioned this, Andreas, because this is something important for the listeners to hear as well. Now, I want to go more into the depths of the finance of this as well, because for us, I have actually owned a gallery for many years, and I know many others that might be listening have maybe tried to venture into that, and it's definitely no easy task. So, how did you overcome the financial challenges of starting a gallery? Did you seek investors? Did you do crowdfunding, or is everything self-funded?
You're absolutely right. Starting a gallery is extremely difficult, and that is why you rarely see young people starting a gallery. Usually, the galleries that remain are the ones that have been there for decades. And today, you need a lot of funds. There is a lot at stake, a lot of expenses as well. You don't see it from the outside, from an outside perspective, but you have to cover a lot of costs. And so I would say that I started very modestly. When I opened the gallery, I borrowed I had a showroom, so I would exhibit the artworks in a private villa. So I had an agreement with the owner. The purpose was not to pay rent because I couldn't pay any. It wasn't possible. The only funds that I put were used to get a loan to finance the vehicle, which I would use to drive all the way up to Sweden, pick up the artwork myself, and drive it back down to France. So for a couple of months, I used this private showroom, but it was hard because I started with absolutely zero network, no network of collectors, nothing, and it was very hard at first. And suddenly came this opportunity of opening the gallery in a ski resort. I would say I was lucky because it doesn't happen to everybody. And I can tell you right now, it's been 2 years and I still don't have a salary. Everything goes to the gallery, because I believe in the project, of course. But you have to make a few sacrifices. Thankfully, I love what I do. I love working with my artists, and you have to bite the dust, you could say, from times to time. Yeah.
You do.
Mm,
And I don't think you're the only one. I think it takes years before you actually start getting an
absolutely.
income.
Yes.
Yeah.
They usually say you
Wow.
need to wait at least 3 years before you start establishing yourself. Mm.
Yeah, that's the norm, isn't it? But you say Sweden. Why not Norway and Denmark as well? That's Scandinavia too.
So the answer is absolutely simple. Because I'm Swedish, it was easier at first to start with Swedish artists. Speaking the language, I had the possibility of convincing artists much more. And it wasn't easy at first because I didn't have a gallery. I just arrived in Sweden and I told them, well, my project is to start this in France. Are you in? Quite of a crazy bet. And many artists who work with me today, when they read my email at first, they were certain that it was a scam. They didn't believe me at first because a 27-year-old art dealer telling them that he wants to exhibit their art in the French Alps, it sounded too good to be true. And I understand them absolutely. But some of them were crazy enough to believe in my project. And to this day, they are still with me and we do this adventure together. And that's the most amazing thing. Mm.
And those are the artists that you want to keep, the ones that have been supporting you from the very beginning.
Absolutely, absolutely. Without their trust, this gallery wouldn't exist. So I started with Swedish artists, and then the goal was to expand to Denmark and Norway, because, as you said, they do represent Scandinavia. So I have a Danish artist in my gallery now. I'm really glad to announce it, and maybe a second one, but I can't speak too early. There's a lot that needs to be clarified first. But I have my eyes open, and I really look forward to finding Norwegian artists as well. Mm,
Well, let's hope that maybe this podcast might get some listeners from Norway
I
and
hope so.
Denmark.
Yes.
Now, Finland isn't actually considered Scandinavia, but it is a Nordic country. Would you be interested in having Finnish artists as well?
I would definitely be interested. As you said, it's Nordic. So if I expand to Nordic countries, then Iceland becomes included as well. And I've already had my eyes on Icelandic art. I won't lie, because I'm planning a lot in advance, and I'm really curious to see how different these artists work. I already noticed a stark contrast between Sweden and Denmark. At first, I was trying to find the same thread in Danish art as I found in the Swedish one. But then I realized something obvious. The nature isn't the same. You don't have these forests, these lakes in Denmark as you do in Sweden. So the art can't be the same. The Danish don't work in the same way. And the actual Danish artist that I have right now in my gallery, she lived several years in the Faroe Islands. So that's quite a place as well. And that's why I loved her work as soon as I discovered her in Copenhagen, because she painted the Faroe Islands, but from a Danish perspective, and that was exactly what I was out for. Mm.
Can you maybe share this artist's name
Absolutely.
out of
Yes,
curiosity?
her name is Lone Mokko, and she's been painting for more than at least 20 years now. She lived many years in Tórshavn on the Faroe Islands, and today she's based in Jutland, where she has her studio. And I'm about to meet her in October because I need new paintings. People in France love what she does, what she do.
I'm so impressed by listening to you, Andreas. I really am. I think it's astonishing everything you've managed to do so far in such a short amount of time. Really, truly.
Yeah, I tend to be very strict with myself, and fortunately, I have people around me who remind me all the time of everything that has been going on for just a year and a half. I mean, from starting with four artists to opening a gallery to doubling it to eight to I mean, it never stops, and there's so much more going on. I did my first art fair in April, called Art Up, which is a art fair brand in France. So we had 13,000 visitors together with 50 other galleries. So that was big, the first time that a huge public could discover Scandinavian art, and people love it. That is what is so great about it. People love what is Scandinavian, and because we are a part of nature, we need nature ourselves. What these painters do, well, the public is really receptive. Um,
You
it,
must have been high for several days after that event because I know how much pressure it is and how exhausting it can be.
I would say rather exhausted than high,
Yeah.
to be honest,
Yeah. Exhausted and high.
because
Okay. Yeah.
art fairs
Good.
are, at the same time, it is a unique experience. You meet so many people
Yeah.
and there's so much going on, and it is brutal because you work between 12 and 14 hours a day for and 5 6 days in a row. But it's an
Yeah.
experience. You have to try it, you have to do it. If you've had I guess you've done it yourself.
I have tried. Yes, I
Yeah,
have.
you've been
It's
through
a
it.
passion. I
Yeah,
mean, without the passion, you can't do it really.
absolutely, absolutely. Mm.
So I think we've already kind of touched base with this, but I'm going to go a bit more deep dive into how do you actually view the current art market in France? Are there trends now that you find particularly exciting or even concerning for that matter?
Um, well, the art market is so broad that there's a lot going on. For the past few years, street art has been on the rise. It has been a huge market here in France, and then hmm, and then you notice also a change because abstract art has been really popular for the past 20 years. And there is a shift going on where people go back to figurative because start of the year 2000, figurative was associated with, you would call it old art, which is really quite a generalistic term. But now there is a shift. People are going back to landscapes. And the most important thing that I notice is that depending on where you are, whether you're in the capital or you're in the Alps, people are not looking out for the same things. In the capital, they have specific taste. They're looking for something very avant-garde, you could say. And whereas in the Alps, people come to the mountain to see mountains, and so they're looking for motives, subjects, nature, and and then depending on where you are as well, people are rather interested in paintings and not so much in photography. Photography will work a lot more in big cities because it is a specific market with collectors who know exactly what they're looking for. And so depending on the
Right.
region, yes.
Sorry, did I interrupt?
No,
I
no.
didn't
So
mean to.
no, just saying that depending on the region, people are not looking for the same things. And here in the Alps, I tend to sell more figurative art rather than abstract. Mm.
Yeah, that makes sense. It really does. I mean, this is where people have their cabins, right? Or their second homes.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
And they want to find this atmosphere on the walls as well. They have it throughout the window, but they want it on the walls. And that's why street art tends to work a lot better in capitals, where people are looking for um, the newest creation. And in the Alps, people want nature in their house that is in the middle of nature. And I spoke with one of my artists about this. She paints forests and the sea, but the sea only works well where she is in southern Sweden, because she lives on the coast, her buyers, her collectors as well. And so that's why I didn't even trouble of asking her sea paintings. It wasn't worth it. You know, when people come to the
No.
mountains, they want to see mountains, and when you go to the French Riviera, you want to see the sea. Mm.
Well, you've definitely understood it. You're spot on there. I've seen it myself. Talking about that, actually, what do you think technology plays in the modern art gallery these days? Are you incorporating any digital elements into your gallery experience? I think I may have seen one of your artists that plays around with digital techniques. Could that be correct?
Um, well, not to my knowledge. That would be something new,
Really? Was I
unless they're
mistaken?
hiding it from me. Uh, but
Maybe I was mistaken then. Yeah.
who knows? You might be right. But I don't mind it at all. Of course, I remain cautious because there is technology and technology. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying it. I'm not a big fan of NFTs because I tend to, I prefer art that requires craftsmanship, technique, and research. And that is a personal preference. It doesn't mean that NFTs are necessarily bad. It's just not a part of my gallery. But I am open to digital. There are a lot of new technologies that are developing at the moment. Um,
It's just high pacing, isn't it? It's
yeah,
crazy. Yeah.
and I mean,
How do you see,
we.
sorry,
No, no,
yeah.
please continue.
How do you see your gallery evolving in, let's say, the next 5 years? Do you have any plans for expansion or any new initiatives that might take place?
Sure. I would say the first step is increasing the number of artists in terms of variety, to have a good amount of Swedish, Norwegian, and Danish artists, so that I represent the entirety of Scandinavia. That is the first step. The second one would be to, well, I mean, for now, my gallery is the only one in France and in Europe representing Scandinavian art. And I would like to focus more on that, becoming this official representant of
Yeah.
Scandinavian art. And of course, I'm really open to partnerships, whether it be with the Scandinavian institutes in France or overseas, and becoming a reference for Scandinavian art, that people know they can find um, quality art with technique, with passion, with soul, most of all, with soul, and they can find it here at Heimdall Gallery, because that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Mm. And when it comes to
Perfect.
expansion, uh, we shall see. As much as I want my gallery to grow, I wouldn't say I want to have 10 different galleries in 10 different countries. Maybe because I also enjoy having a life, and with all the work
Exactly.
going on, yeah, I also want I need my time. I need my vacation from time to time. Um,
Certainly. Yeah.
but I'm definitely open to expanding, but also following the trends in terms of technology. I'm following it really closely because in terms of simulation today with virtual reality, um, you can do almost anything, and I'm actually working on with a colleague on this as well, working on a tool that might be used by the gallery and by galleries in the future. But we're still at an early stage, so I can't say more for now.
Another exciting news then.
Exactly.
Even more so to follow. Keep on following
Mm.
Heimdall Gallery. What has been the most rewarding part, would you say, of your journey so far as a gallery owner?
Mm, I would definitely say the relationships that I have developed with amateurs, visitors, collectors, but mostly artists. I think the relationship I have with them is what makes this job so enjoyable because it's not just business. I have a close relationship with all of them. I consider them my friends, and we work together. We don't work. We do not work for each other. We're helping each other out. Um, I know they want my gallery to thrive, and I want them to enjoy their artistic process, being able to earn a living from it, and the fact that they trusted me from the start. That is the most rewarding part. Having their trust without a contract, it means a lot for a gallerist because you tend to have a lot of contracts there and there. It doesn't mean that a contract is bad, but when you have an artist who shakes your hand and says, sure, you can have my art, drive back to France with all of my paintings and represent me in France, it's the biggest honor. And I am such a fan myself of the artist that I represent. So that's the best part of being a gallerist. It's the relationship you have with your artist and seeing them succeed. That's the best.
This is why I believe in you, because
Thank
this
you.
is what a great gallerist should be.
Mm.
Exactly what you just said now. So it's really it's so great to hear you say that, truly.
Well, thank you. I think it's just passion, and I mean I'm the beginner. I see myself as the young dealer who wants to prove himself, but for that he needs support, and I would say it's just gratitude for these artists who saw something in me and who chose to bet on this racing horse, and I can't thank them enough. To be honest, it's. There are no regrets, despite all the working hours, all the ups and downs, and as you said, the hardships of starting a gallery. Um, this makes it worth it. This is it.
It
Yeah.
does, yeah.
Mm.
That was actually going to be my next question to you. What keeps you motivated during tough times? But I guess you actually really answered that now.
Um, what
Or
keeps
do
on?
you have maybe a particular mantra or philosophy that guides you?
That is a really good question. Had I known, I would have thought about it before the podcast. But what keeps me motivated, I would say, looking back on everything that has happened, because there have been some tough times, especially in France, which is a country where there is a lot happening economically, politically. I'm sure if you follow the news, you've seen a lot in the past few years. There's always something going on which could shake the market on a tremendous level, and that's when you have to focus on what's important. Just keep doing your thing with the same passion, and there is, you can't see it at that moment, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. I couldn't see it back then, but I'm lucky to have a family that supports me, friends as well. And
That helps.
I think what helps me the most is also the artists supporting me, them knowing that it might not be easy at the moment, but they don't put any pressure on me. They have 100% trust. One of them even told me when we started working together, she said, you know, if you're corrupt and you just disappear with my paintings, I don't mind. These are just paintings. Now, she's one of the few who has reached such a meditative and philosophic state that I definitely envy. But
Yeah.
it's that the artists know what you're going through, and they're helping me from times to times. You know, I need something specific from them, and they let me know that it's all right if you don't sell at the moment. We know it's not easy, and knowing that makes the job much easier, because if you work with artists who are craving and you know they're asking a lot from you, well, then comes the stress. And I'm
Yeah.
thankful that there is no stress whatsoever with my artists, and that's what I look for. When I look for artists, it's not just the art, it's also the relationship, how we work.
The relationship. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You've obviously chosen very wisely then, because artist as artist also comes in different packaging, right?
Absolutely.
We can say. Yeah.
And I think we both have to play our parts. They don't put any pressure on me when it comes to the gallery work, and I would
Yeah.
never put any pressure on them in terms of production, producing a certain number of paintings during the next 3 months. That would never come to mind, and for me, it's unthinkable. You know, you can't rush art. It's a process, and I think if you don't rush things, you do it as you are meant to do it, then it becomes beautiful. Mm.
So how do you unwind and find inspiration outside from work then?
So you mean
Or is it just a
in terms of relaxing, how I change
yeah.
uh, change my mind?
Do you
Uh,
shift course, or are you constantly kind of within the business, within the field of art, or do you have other interests that might help you unwind and
hmm.
think differently?
Well, the trap of starting a business is that it tends to take more space, you know, even on the personal level, because you're starting, you work all the time. I mean, my working hours are from 8 in the morning to midnight, depending on if I receive an important email. You never know. Thankfully, it's not work; it's passion, so I can do it every day. I usually work every day, but I'm also careful on, you know, taking care of myself, doing a lot of sport, which helps clearing the
Yeah.
mind from time to time. And then it's enjoying nature, being outside, listening to music, and
You're taking care of your inner core, basically, which is really important.
I'm trying. Let's just say it's much easier to take care of yourself when the sales have been doing good. You could say. Obviously, there is a bit of pressure because you also think about the artists. You want them to succeed. So when I sell, it's not really about the gallery that is thriving. It's also, well, the artist. You know, it tells them that what you're doing is good. It is appreciated. Keep doing that. And there is this pressure that is following you around. They don't put any pressure on me, but I pressure myself because I want them to, you know, to feel this gratification. Because when I hear the collectors who are so admirative, they appreciate it so much. I wish the artist could be there to hear what they have to say, because it's beautiful to hear. I think it's the best thing an artist can receive. It's the praise of a collector who knows a lot about the market and who sees in your work something precious. That's rewarding.
Beautiful, Andreas. So before we wrap up, do you have any advice maybe you might want to give to other young entrepreneurs that want to enter or venture into this difficult art world?
Sure. I mean, there is plenty of advice could be given. If you are an entrepreneur and you want to start a similar project, I would say that one of the key aspects in thriving and growing your business, whether it be a gallery or anything else, is your network. But your network of people around you, the ones you work with, having healthy business relationships with suppliers, with people who provide service, having key people that you can trust, that is more important than anything. Because when I started the gallery, I imagined doing everything by myself. And obviously, after a few burnouts, you start to realize that you can't do anything by yourself. It's not possible. You have to delegate, you have to trust others to do the work that you might not be good at. And for artists, creatives, and designers, my advice would be to focus on your signature. Even if you have a different definition of success, depending on what you do, if you're a designer, a creator, a painter, the most important thing is your signature. It's your identity, because there are a lot of artists nowadays. There are a lot of self proclaimed artists that are emerging through the rise of social media. And
Oh, yeah.
so, what you need is to have a style that prevents people from associating you with the mass, and focusing on what makes you happy, painting because you feel the need to paint, you need answers in this creative research, and focusing on what makes you you. That's the most important part, because that is how I found my artists. They were so true to themselves that nobody could ever do what they are doing. And sure, you might see some inspiration from this or this artist, but artists find inspiration in art all around themselves. That's it's been like this for since the beginning of time. But focusing on your identity, what makes you this kind of artist? And if you have that identity, then you have a signature, and then you separate yourself from the mass, and that's the most important part.
Truly. Merci beaucoup.
Mais avec plaisir.
Thank you so much thank you for sharing everything with us today. I am actually really mind blown by you and what you've accomplished. And it really gives me so much talking with other, creatives and entrepreneurs, and the drive and the
Yeah.
passion people have gives me so much. And I think we will be hearing a lot about you in the future. So thank you from the bottom of my heart that we did this interview today, that you
Well,
had the time at
thank
least.
you for having me, and thank you for choosing me, because I believe you saw something. I can't explain what it is, but I've seen your work as well. And when I looked at it, that's when I knew, of course I would be doing this podcast, because we are looking for the same thing. I think a new generation of actors in this art market, because there's a lot of things going on. The art world can be ruthless,
Oh,
depending on
it can
what
be
you do.
horrible and ruthless.
Absolutely horrible. There's a lot of
I've never understood
secretive
why
ways.
we can't cheer each other up, why we
Yeah.
always have to, why there's so much backfiring or talking behind backs. Why can't we
Yes.
all just lift each other up?
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of backstabbing going on. And I think maybe that's what motivated me as well to create my own thing. Because when I worked in Paris, sure, it was amazing because it's the capital life and there's a lot going on the artistic level. But you also see a lot of shady things. The more money at stake, obviously, the worse it gets. And I think it's time for something new, a new mentality. And I hope to see many more young creators doing their own thing and just sticking to it. If you stick to your passion and you believe in it, I think believing is the key. If you don't believe in it, then nobody else is going to believe for you. You have to believe in it yourself, just like you are believing in your podcasts and the different meetings that you can create, and also sharing this with the public. I think that's an amazing initiative. And I definitely look forward to seeing your podcasts grow and seeing it evolve. So I think we'll definitely keep in touch, and this won't be our last interview.
Thank you so much. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in to the Artful Exchange. If you want to learn more about our guest today, Andreas Fensby and Heimdall Gallery, please have a look in our description post for this specific episode. There you will find social media links and all the information you need to get in touch with Andreas. And until then, stay creative and inspired.